Coming up on this episode of Great American Gardens, trees are coaxed into beautiful shapes at a Japanese garden in California. All it takes is string and years of patience. A chocolate tree is a sweet treat to see in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And later, thousands of marigolds, stately columns, and bewitching roses enchant those who visit this estate in Illinois. It's all coming up on our tour of Great American Gardens. Hello, welcome to Great American Gardens. I'm Tricia Springer. Southern California is a mecca for sun seekers and celebrity seekers. While Los Angeles offers theme parks, movie stars, and the adrenaline rush of a fast-paced city, the nearby city of Long Beach isn't overshadowed by its glitzy neighbor. Just 25 miles south, Long Beach is a quiet contrast to the rush of the big city and home to the peaceful haven of a Japanese garden. Like a living work of art, the Earl Burns Miller Japanese Garden is a beautiful and complex landscape. It's confined not by a picture's frame, but by an acre of ground on the campus of the University of California, Long Beach. And like a master's painting, this Japanese garden offers something new at every glance.
Of course, our garden has much to offer the visitor. Their first impression is one of tremendous serenity and peace, and you can actually hear an audible sigh of ah when they walk in.
Hidden within the strokes of green are strokes of genius that turn a small area of college campus into a perfectly rendered Japanese garden. Pine trees that take shape, but only with strings attached. A type of fish that rivals flowers for beauty. And a Japanese zigzag bridge that has an American twist. The Earl Burns Miller Japanese Garden is a place of inspiration and contemplation.
I think people who visit our garden yearn for the opportunity to experience a peaceful and serene landscape, and so people are attracted to it.
50,000 visitors a year from all over the world are drawn to this tranquil garden. The garden is named after California businessman Earl Burns Miller. Dedicated in 1981, the garden honors Miller's love of plants and flowers and his fascination with Japanese gardens. The garden was established at California State University by his wife Lorraine, a benefactor to the school. An important feature of Japanese gardens is the notion of balance. But at the Earl Burns Miller Japanese Garden, balance does not equal the type of symmetry often displayed in European gardens. Except for the pond's reflection, there are no mirror images here. Instead, Japanese gardens achieve balance with opposing forces, attempting to duplicate nature's random placement of plant life. Banks of low-growing mock orange and Indian hawthorn balance the tall and wispy willow on the other side of the pond. The willow fulfills another role as well. According to Japanese tradition, it represents female energy and provides a balance to the nearby broad-leafed maple, which symbolizes masculine power. Individual plants contribute to the balance of the entire garden. Black pine branches that appear fashioned by nature were actually sculpted by human hands.
The style is achieved by removing the pine needles one by one and by clipping the small branches in such a way as to create the appearance of an open hand. And the hope is to achieve perfect balance in each plant.
A team of up to 5 people are responsible for deciding how the tree should grow, and it can take several hours to tie the cords of the tree that are also a part of this ancient art of tree shaping.
Pressure is put on the limbs to bring them down into a horizontal shape. You'll see the cord has been tied from the outer part of the branch back to the trunk to put some leverage or pressure on the tree to achieve this wonderful and elegant style.
Hundreds of shades of green are also a part of Japanese garden style.
Japanese gardens tend towards the monochrome, but you can find color in surprising and subtle places, like the koi fish in the pond, which tend to be orange, red, white, black, a variety of colors.
Flowers and shrubs also add pinpoints of color to reflect a bit of American garden style here. Another bit of American fancy is the legend associated with the zigzag bridge, found at the far end of the hill and pond garden. It's been said that a zigzag bridge offers a way to run from demons, since evil spirits can only run in a straight line. But this seems to be an American tall tale. Beyond the hill and pond garden, nooks and crannies invite exploration and offer new perspectives on the garden.
So it's a design sense, hide and reveal. The sound of the stream is very light and sort of musical from a distance. Then you get up close, it's much louder. That's sort of, the garden unfolding in time and space.
Some of the spaces in this garden are uniquely enhanced by the plants that grow here. Bamboo fences that accent the garden are made from bamboo that grows near the tea house, an example of integrating the garden's natural resources and connecting with nature. In this garden, fish paint a portrait of beauty, and trees are a study in patience. The Earl Burns Miller Japanese garden reveals that nature's balance has its own beauty. When we return, tiny plants beat the elements in a rock garden in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And later, the Renaissance lives on at this estate outside of Chicago. Next on Great American Gardens. It's all. In the northern regions of the United States, the growing seasons of spring and summer are fleeting. Plants that grow in Michigan often have only one brief window of opportunity to put on a show. But in Ann Arbor, gardeners at the Mathai Botanical Gardens make magic in the limited and precious time that they have. Traditionally, winters are bitterly cold and long in Michigan, where a good day can be below freezing and a bad day below zero. But at the Mathai Botanical Gardens in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a challenge in latitude simply requires an inventive attitude.
What I'm most proud about this garden is the diversity of plants we're able to show people, and particularly to get people engaged with thinking about plants in ways they've never thought before.
When it's cold, Mathai offers the tropics. In spite of a short growing season, abundant color thrives. And even though Ann Arbor sits at a low altitude, a miniature alpine fantasy awaits.
It's a little green oasis in the middle of an area that's undergoing intensive development outside of Ann Arbor.
At 350 acres, it's pretty big for a little oasis. Inside the glass conservatory, more than 1,500 plants recreate the feeling of faraway lands. While outdoors, 10 theme gardens promise a tranquil stroll. In 1897, a group of professors at the University of Michigan planted a small medicinal herb garden. 10 years later, it expanded to become the university's first botanical gardens. The gardens have moved several times, finally finding a home here when Frederick and Mildred Mathai donated 250 acres in 1958. In over 40 years, the Mathai Botanical Gardens have never been bound by a master plan.
Rather, we design each garden with a particular theme, and we're more than willing to change the theme over the years as it goes, so that when visitors come back, they can see something new and different.
Visitors encounter 3 of Mathai's themes in the 10,000 square foot conservatory.
You open the doors to the facility, all of a sudden there's this tropical view ahead of you, and it's called We're Not in Michigan Anymore.
First stop, the tropics, where the roots of a mangrove tree tiptoe into a pond. Exotic orchids fill the air with perfume, and other plants offer a taste of banana, coffee, and chocolate.
I'm in one of the best places of Earth. I'm sitting under a chocolate tree. Most people don't know that chocolate as a fruit comes from really small flowers, and then when you see the fruit, you open it up. Here are these huge slimy seeds in the inside, but when you cut them open, what do you see? But that's where raw chocolate comes from.
Next door in the temperate house, gardeners have created an indoor bog. Here, carnivorous plants like the Venus flytrap and the pitcher plant wait open-mouthed for a nutritious snack. The redhead cactus turns heads as people wander the desert house, amid plants that would freeze and burst in an Ann Arbor winter. After their desert crossing, visitors leave the conservatory and head outside to the English-style perennial garden. More than 100 varieties of perennials are planted to maintain a profusion of color throughout the short growing season, which lasts from May to September.
You can think of it as music, only instead of playing notes, you're playing colors, and it holds the same tune the whole season.
It's not easy for roses to hold that tune. Michigan can have frosts as late as June, so varieties like the Fire Maitland rose must be tough enough to withstand the cold that would freeze a hybrid tea. Down the trail, the plants in the rock garden can easily withstand cold weather because their usual homes are mountains and highlands. Dwarf plants like the Arenaria defend themselves against cold by staying small. The Arenaria is a model of efficiency. It hugs rocks to absorb the stored heat of the sun, and its tiny leaves present plenty of surface area to soak up sunlight.
You look at them and you think at first, oh, it's just a living thing from Mars, but you get down, look at all those tiny green leaves with the little white edges to them. It's just Lilliputian. You know, it's just, I just get drawn in.
Ann Arbor's climate is typically too damp for these plants, so gardeners have hidden deep holes in the ground to drain excess water from the soil. From the miniature plants of the mountains to transplants from the tropics, gardeners at Mathai make the most of Michigan by picking plants to suit the environment or changing the environment to suit the plants. When we come back, a garden so pretty it was featured in a romantic movie. More Great American Gardens in a moment. Welcome back. I'm Tricia Springer. The Chicago suburban neighborhood of Vernon Hills, Illinois, was once rolling countryside. It was a place where industrialists and entrepreneurs took up the hobby of weekend country farming. The Kunio Museum and Gardens is a living snapshot of how life used to be in this area. Started by one Chicago businessman and carried on by another, the grounds of the Kunio Museum give us a glimpse of American high style in the middle of America's heartland. Just north of Chicago, where once vast open land attracted the wealthy, lies Qto Museum and Gardens. This estate stands as a reminder of an earlier age of elegant living.
We are a garden that has existed for decades. Among many estates that have been lost, many estates that have been sold, we are still a property for people to come to visit, to enjoy, to see a bygone era.
It's an estate with enduring appeal, adorned by classic arrangements of classic trees and flowers. Thousands of marigolds form beds of gold. Flower-wrapped columns create a scene for a blockbuster movie. And open vistas are framed by stately trees. Kunio Gardens are set against the backdrop of an Italian Renaissance villa. The grounds expand the Renaissance theme with fountains, sculpture, and formal beds of flowers.
It's very inviting. You can meditate, you can walk among color, you can enjoy the statuary and the fountains.
Kunio Estate and Gardens were built in 1913 by Samuel Insull, a business associate of Thomas Edison. The estate was purchased in the 1930s by publisher John Kunio. His family opened it to the public in 1991. But it was Samuel Insull who commissioned famed landscape architect Jens Jensen to design the grounds and gardens.
Jens Jensen's philosophy was to bring nature to its finest, whether it was through the use of native plants, shrubbery, perennials.
Jensen's affinity for nature can be seen throughout the informal grounds. Jensen's approach to landscaping included more than just the study of plant material. He also studied the land, light, and space. Horizontal tree lines with just a hint of vertical contrast mark his prairie style and complement the flat Midwestern plains. But it's an Italian theme that Jensen designed for the formal gardens. Known as the Four Seasons Gardens, these beds overflow with striking color.
One of the dominant themes in Italian Renaissance gardens surrounds us here in the Four Seasons Gardens, and as the name itself indicates, the plantings change with the seasons. And here, all around us, is a bloom and color of over 46,000 marigolds.
Every one of those marigolds was grown from seed right here in the Kunio greenhouse. Along the garden's colonnade walk, strands of clematis cover the 15-foot columns in veils of burgundy and purple.
As you exit the mansion, you gaze upon two beautiful classical Corinthian columns. And it has a wonderful background because they were created as an outdoor stage.
The colonnade walk is still used for theatrical performances and weddings, or a combination of both.
We've also been very fortunate to host a movie site location here. In fact, my best friend's wedding was filmed here with Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz.
Aisles of climbing vines lead to beds of roses with names like Bewitched, Ultimate Pink, and White Lightning. The classic appeal of roses fits into this timeless Vernon Hills, Illinois garden. Designed by the master of prairie style, thousands of marigolds and flowered columns reflect a golden age. Fish dazzle visitors with their stunning colors and playful antics when we return to a Japanese garden in California. Next on Great American Gardens.
My girlfriend and I were talking about osteoporosis, and she told me she has to set aside time one morning every week to take her osteoporosis pill. I said, I take once monthly Boniva. It fits my routine. And she said, that I can do. Boniva helps build strong, healthy bones to prevent fractures with just one pill a month. With all I do for bone health, Boniva fits right in.
Unlike weekly treatments like Fosamax, you only need Boniva once a month.
No wonder 2 out of 3 women preferred the dosing of Boniva over a weekly treatment.
You should not take Boniva if you have low blood calcium, severe kidney disease, or cannot sit or stand for at least 60 minutes. Follow dosing instructions carefully. Stop taking Boniva and tell your doctor if you experience difficult or painful swallowing.
Welcome back to Great American Gardens. Earlier we visited the Earl Burns Miller Japanese garden and saw how koi add color to the garden. These fish are not only beautiful, they've got personality as well.
They're fascinating to watch, extremely graceful. And their playful nature comes out in the way that they come up to visitors in the garden and beg for food at the bridges, or if a visitor has enough confidence, they can take some koi food down to the edge of the pond and call the koi over, and they'll actually eat right out of their hands. And everybody finds this an extraordinary experience, especially children.
Each koi at the Earl Burns Miller Garden consumes over 40 pounds of fish food a year. And the average koi here weighs in at a hefty 13 pounds. That's more than 200 times bigger than your average goldfish. The Japanese word koi means brocaded. With their rich colors, it's easy to see why these fish are called living jewels. In fact, they can sell for as much as $10,000. Thanks for joining us on our tour of Great American Gardens. And remember, public gardens are your gardens.